Hello, welcome to the appropriately named Shoot podcast, obviously brought to you from Shoot Business. My name is Chris. I am a video marketing strategist here at Shoot Business, and we have Ahmed. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ahmed, the marketing manager here at Shoot Business. Obviously, Chris has gained bonus points for the first episode because he's remembered to wear his Shoot Business shirt, and I have forgot, so he's winning. So yeah,
Shocking.
Yeah, terrible start for me.
Amazing. So in this podcast, in our first podcast that we've put together for you and our audiences, we wanted to obviously put together something that was super informative and relevant to sort of our industries and our work, that what we do, and hopefully we can offer you a little bit of insight. What we are going to do, obviously, you've seen the title of the podcast, we are briefly going to describe how sort of products and services, especially in sort of corporate companies and brands like yourself, can really benefit from the use of video marketing. What we're going to do is we're obviously going to highlight sort of the importance of video, especially in sort of today's digital marketing landscape, and hopefully, we'll dive straight in and give you some insight into that. Ahmed, I'll come on to you. What I'd really like to do, obviously, is just talk about the power of video, why video is effective, especially for sort of explaining your products or services. Sort of tell me how sort of the visual and the audio appeal of videos can really impact sort of your products and services and sort of elevate them to new heights.
Well, Chris, that's a very interesting question and a very good one to ask at the start of this podcast, because well, let's just start with my personal life. At the moment, I'm playing a video game called Star Wars: The Jedi Fallen Order because I'm cool. It's on PlayStation. Me and my flatmate are playing it. Now, my flatmate has no idea about marketing. He works in a different field. And we were playing it, and we got stuck on this part, and we were just in this like old Jedi temple. Every corner you turn is just a dark room. And he went, oh, just go on YouTube. There's a guy I found who can show us how to do it. So we did that, and we got out of the temple. We successfully did it.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Big achievement for the week. And he said to me, interestingly, he's like, hey, do you remember those days of the old gaming manuals you had to buy in the early 2000s, which you could probably kill someone with? They are all gone. They're all done. They're desolate. Like now, anytime you get stuck on a video game or anything like that, you have to kind of just watch a YouTube video on how to do it. And that got me thinking about other things as well. Like I bought, I'm not going to pronounce the name because I can't, it's like a Ferdhurden from IKEA, basically a desk, and there was a video with it as well, and a manual. I instantly just put the manual to one side and used the video it gave me, and that was just perfect for it. And it's amazing how we're moving out of just these old manuals that can cover your whole front room to now just using a small effective YouTube video. I built that in like 20 minutes compared to if I just relied on the manual. I'd still be building it. I wouldn't be in work today, basically. But it's amazing. I mean, obviously, Chris, you can weigh in on this as well. But video retains. I think I was reading somewhere that viewers retain 95% of a message they watch in a video compared to 10% reading on a text, and I think that's absolutely accurate. It's absolutely accurate. Like if you watch something on how to do something, like you guaranteed to, because you can visually see it. It's funny
you say that, because we built a wardrobe, me and my partner, from IKEA. And the first time we actually built it, we broke it from reading the instructions. The second time, obviously I'd spent a fortune on this, so I had to go back to IKEA and buy the additional wardrobe. Luckily it's not too expensive from IKEA, but anyway, that's beside the point. And I actually studied YouTube videos on how, it was the PAX wardrobes, you could probably look it up, it's the standard wardrobes that you put together, and on YouTube, and there's loads of guys out there on YouTube who just explain it so much better than the manuals. And yeah, like I say, I studied the YouTube videos and I followed it by step by step. And it was just so much easier. Like I say, touching on the visual and the audio appeal, just explaining how to do it. It was just so much better.
I mean, and that's an interesting point. You lead off there because it can really simplify complex information really well. I'm sure you got other points on this as well that you can go into, but there's so many times where someone's got a really complex product or a complex service that is doing amazing work, but yet they find it hard to convey with traditional marketing methods of white paper, case studies. But like a video could be really good at just explaining what you can do and what you can offer and kind of visually show that benefit, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from our own point of view, especially looking into sort of, we do a lot of work in the healthcare sector, for example. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that any equipment that's, potentially being used, whether that's from a product or service standpoint in the healthcare industry, you want to make sure that that's explained properly, because obviously if it goes wrong, could be sort of a catastrophe.
Oh, 100%.
So we work, especially with various different companies in making sure that, for example, we did a project where it was an LDS needle. So it was quite a complex sort of new needle that was being sort of brought to market, especially for sort of injections. And we actually put an animation together for that. Super quick, simple animation. Nice and colourful, bright, super simple. I even thought that I could potentially suddenly, start injecting people with it. It was that great. So it's a prime example of how you can really simplify, like Ahmed said, complex products. And it's, often sometimes, and it doesn't have to be that, advanced. You don't have to use animation. You can simply open your phone, and I think we'll come on to it later in the podcast, and just hit record and just have you quite simply running through the product and how it works. It can still be as powerful.
True. I think that's the key. It can be quite powerful, right? You need to have that video or anything like that like you can send to someone on, this is how you do it, this is how you work it, because at the same time it acts as almost like your 24/7 product demonstrator, because you have something there that you can utilize. You can send it to someone who's like, actually, how do I do this, or how do I put this together, or and how do I make it, basically. So it's good to have that in your arsenal where you can just basically show it and and show it to anyone who's interested in what your product or service is offering.
Yeah, no, I think that moves us really nicely onto sort of the different types that you can create. I think there's 4 main ones that realistically you could utilize. And that one of them being an explainer video. With explainer videos, these are videos that are quite simply used to explain the product or service or the concept and how to potentially use your product or service. Now, one thing that's super good about using sort of explainer videos is they can deal with your objections from a day-to-day from like a sales standpoint. You've got the F&Qs section on your website. I guarantee a lot of them could possibly be answered through an explainer video. It's often the case that we see, especially with our clients and our brands. It can allow people to just simply understand your product. You could have quite an intricate product. It could be quite technologically advanced. You've got to bear in mind that obviously potentially a lot of your demographic, although it may be beneficial to them, may not be able to quite get their head around at the initial stages of how to use your product. So simple video and putting that in front of them and making it super, super straightforward could really assist that audience. It's a great way to sort of share knowledge. Obviously, we've touched on as well that it's 10 times more engaging, like Ahmed said before, in terms of the retention rates. Cool, Ahmed. How about we sort of talk about, potential tips, for creating explainer videos, and I'm sure you can delve into sort of a few ideas where someone who is maybe just starting out in their sort of video journey, how could they potentially just pick up the phone and start
explaining things.
Explaining things.
So before you do that as well, this is where obviously pre-production comes in. I think pre-production is so vital. Obviously, we rant and rave about it. I think anyone who works in our field does. So you need to make sure they have stuff in place to make sure that it works when you hit record. Because the worst thing you can do is get someone like, hey, explain how this works off the cuff, and they're umming and ahhing. They're using terminology that only people in their industry would probably know, rather their seller probably wouldn't even know about, like, big words. So it's always vital to make sure you're writing down these ideas. Brainstorm of, okay, what does my product do? What does it offer? And how does it help people? And how does it work, more importantly? Ergo, your product or service. So make sure you have a script in place that works for people, and test it out. Try and explain to someone that, you don't really know that well on how your thing works. And if they can turn around and go, oh, that's pretty interesting, or they turn around and go, I have no idea what you just said to me, get away from me, then you haven't done well. This kind of helps you make sure that when you are filming and you are recording your explanation video, you are being clear and coherent, the 2 C's as I like to call them, because that's what needs to be put across. And it's a bit different. I mean, obviously, Chris, there's 2 ways of doing explainer videos there as well. I mean, one of the ones I love doing are animated explainer videos. Now, obviously, that requires a lot more budget and time, but they are really, really good to utilize because animation makes everything fun. I think everyone's favorite movie as a kid was animation, and I think as a grown-up, some people secretly are still into animation. I know I am. So it kind of is nice to have animation like that as well. But again, if you want to do animation, voiceover, and the full bells and whistles of an explainer video, you need to make sure your pre-production is good. And I think that's what someone says. It's a bit off topic, but Theo Paphias always says, make sure you do your homework. So make sure you do your homework. Don't just turn up.
We love homework.
Yeah, we're nerds. Don't just turn up and think, okay, cool. What's all right, Steve, just explain the product, hit record. He's not going to be able to do that, but if you make sure you do your pre-production, I think you'll be sweet on that front. And when obviously animation comes in later in play, make sure, if you're definitely investing a lot in that, which obviously works as a great tool, make sure that you're doing your pre-production and making sure that you've done all your homework before. I
think focusing on focus groups are a good point as well. Obviously, we did one recently for Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and that was with a load of students basically discussing their next marketing campaign. And obviously, we got a lot of good information from that, good statistics, which you can use obviously with your product or service, especially if you are looking to, obviously, you're in a potential trial period, you potentially bring in a new product to market. Before you go out there and suddenly start producing these videos explaining your products, because obviously you'll naturally miss certain things because the product quite well. So that's something to really bear in mind.
Definitely 100%.
Ahmed, I think we should, so obviously we've mentioned there the explainer videos. I think we've got, potentially 2-3 more that could potentially be an option, and obviously that's more focusing on the product demos. If you could just touch on that slightly. Yeah,
so a product demo is kind of like how I said, it can just be a simple setup where you have a presenter leading the conversation to camera, and he or she has the product in front of them, where they can just basically talk it through from like how setting up the product, how to utilize the product, features you really want to shout about. Really, I think product demos are really cool as well, because you have a product expert in front of you, and again, it comes back to it acts as almost like your your traveling rep for your company through online, because obviously back in the day, there used to be people at convention halls who used to stand there probably and go, "This is our product. This is how it works. This is all the features it's got. It's cool." But obviously as we move more online, and obviously products now being sold from here to New Zealand, you kind of need that online presence where if, say, someone is bought the product, like how I bought that at Flurkerdurken from IKEA, it's nice to have that video coming into my inbox so I can do it. I mean, there's tons of companies that are doing this, like kitchen fitters who do it now, like, in terms of obviously how your product can work and how it can utilize. There's a lot of investment going into product demo videos. Even then, there's some companies who do live chat, which is quite interesting. If you're having a problem, they have a live video chat where, okay, what's wrong with your appliance? Is that, oh, this is the problem. Okay, cool. And then they have the product in front of them and they're doing almost like a live stream product demo video. It's really cool. So it is definitely, again, one of the things that can really, really help. It's just a good way to shout about your product, really. And I think it works in both the marketing and the post-purchase type environment. So I think they're really, really cool. I mean, again,
absolutely.
It's good to have them in your arsenal.
I want to touch on so the couple more video types that could really be useful, obviously, with customer testimonials and also sort of tutorials and how-to videos, which again, kind of sort of, I think the how-to videos will couple into kind of the product demos. Kind of similar, but more tutorial based, whereas everyone probably more sort of focusing on the marketing aspect as well, and sort of selling and converting that potential customer into buying. What I want to touch on, which is, I'm assuming, Ahmed, is probably one of your favourite ones, because obviously is sort of how impactful are customer testimonial videos?
Well, it's interesting to say this. So I'm going to just give an example. Recently, I was looking at cars because you earn it, hopefully. And I was talking to my friend about this. He's got a Toyota Yaris. I think, Toyota Yaris. He loves his Toyota Yaris. And I was asking him, why do you love it? Why do you do this? And he was just ranting and raving about the features himself. He was just showing me all this, how much mileage he gets, practically in love with his car. And it was quite funny to me because I took a step back and I thought, he's not getting paid by Toyota to say this. Yeah. He's a customer of Toyota, but yet he's selling me more on the car than any showroom person can. Maybe because he's my friend and I trust him, but also because he's a lover of the product. Now, that phrase, that lover of your product or a product advocate, get them on camera when you can, because if you've brought a product that has served them well and they've used it effectively, then they can explain it better than anyone. They can explain also how it works, but also the benefits of it. I mean, Chris, we've done thousands of testimonials over the years. I mean, you could vouch for me on this. Yeah. They sound amazing on camera, and they don't need to be given an artificial script where they're like, this was great. They're genuinely enthusiastic to talk about this because the product could help them and it could be life-changing for their business. And they can explain the process of you coming in, helping them, and obviously what your product or service does for them. And that could work as a great sales and marketing tool to have.
Absolutely. Yep. You couldn't have said it better, Ahmed. Yeah. I really want to go into kind of how you could really create compelling video content.
Definitely.
And there are sort of four main parts, especially within sort of your product or services. And that is the story. It's the production quality. It's got to be engaging. And it's got to have a call to action. Now, if we break them down, the storytelling is about emphasizing the power of storytelling in your video content. So that couples really well with what Ahmed was saying about his friend and about selling the car. I'm sure his friend probably told the story really, really well, because he means it, and it's something that as a client or a brand, we do it with ourselves. So we talk about, the sale of a product or service. It's vastly important that you use stories or case studies. Now, the reason for this is this touches on the emotional part of the buyer's brain. And it moves them more into a relaxed state, which will inevitably lead to conversions. So this is why it's really key to have the storytelling aspect down to a T. Do you agree, Ahmed?
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. And it'd be quite nice just to ask you a follow-up question to that in terms of, obviously, you mentioned storytelling. What tips would you give people? Because again, you know, me and you could say like, oh, it's storytelling, you know, but someone could be sitting there going, I haven't got a Scooby, you know, I have hard to tell a story. So what tips would you give people?
Yeah, great question. So one thing that's really, really important is starting with your customers' pain points. That's number one, okay? And a way to obviously find out the customer's pain points is speaking to them, having them conversations, having them deep conversations, and asking powerful questions, having these focus groups. And I know I'm going down a little bit of the sales path, but it's obviously super important as well. You want them to walk through on how this problem can be solved by finding out exactly what it is that's required. And obviously you can do that by examples. You know, examples and success stories will be your golden ticket to obviously speaking to your potential customers, and obviously making sure that you tell that story is super important.
I agree.
So the next part of sort of creating compelling videos would be the production quality. Now, again, this isn't something that is imperative. It's subjectional, but obviously if you're selling a really high ticket item, a high quality item, and I guess Ahmed, you can touch on this as well if you'd like, then the production quality is going to have a reflection on how your product or service looks.
100%. I completely agree. You know, think about it. If you have bought a high quality item, if someone's bought a high quality item off you, and then next thing you know, you're sending them a video filmed on your mobile, the guy's shaking and moving around the area, they're going to think, well, the aftercare of this is terrible. Like, what? This isn't worth the price. Whereas if you provide them with high quality video content where they can actually see that time has gone into this and value, then they're going to feel more appreciated, and they're going to understand that, yeah, like these people know what they're doing because they're investing in this part as well. They're investing in explaining it to me. They haven't gone, here's it, and then gone, you know, they've actually took the time out to make sure that, you know, when you have an explainer video or something demonstrating your video product or service, that has that high quality care to it, that, you know, it makes them feel value. And it also is way more easier to follow if it is in a high quality aspect rather than something that's filmed on the phone, to be honest.
Absolutely. And then obviously the final part of your video is make sure you have a call to action.
Yeah.
This is so important. You need a call to action or a CTA. You know, it's super important because it gives your potential buyers something to do, okay? They got to the end of your video, they've gone, wow, great, perfect. What do I do? You know, you have to walk buyers through the journey. You have to hold the hand. You know, you need to give them an option, a next step. You know, we're always doing it in our content, and it's super important. So make sure you don't miss out on CTAs.
I mean, on CTAs, just to touch up on that,
sure.
When it comes to obviously explaining videos, it'd be nice to have a link to your website or like, you know, someone they could call perhaps, just in case they have any more further questions. It's a nice CTA to have. Or if, you know, because again, if someone's watched the whole explainer video and they haven't bought your product, it's probably because they want to buy your product, right? So make sure that there's something to follow up on them for.
Absolutely. And then the final part really is measuring your success. Okay. Ahmed, how can somebody measure their success from a video, especially more sort of notably a product or service video?
Yeah, definitely. So on the topic we're talking about, make sure you're getting feedback from your video. If you have had tons of successful purchases and they've got the explainer video and but there's no repeat business or anything like that, then maybe the explainer video isn't working well, right? So go talk to these people. Say like, okay, cool. Like we sent you off all this aftercare training videos or explainer videos, to help you understand the product. Were they not good? And then if they turn around and go, well, no, like it just kind of overcomplicated us, then go back to the drawing board. Always look for feedback, constant feedback, whether you're a professional or a novice, always look for that, because it really, really does help, especially when you have these vital explainer videos content going out there. Make sure that you are listening to your target market. If the comments are reading, this makes no sense to me, and like, what's this about? Then you're clearly not doing something right. So make sure you are listening to that feedback. And
absolutely.
Obviously, Chris, you could talk about obviously the other side of it as well, like analyzing the data, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's with product or service videos. It all depends, obviously, whether you're looking to use it as a marketing piece or whether it's more of a sales sort of piece. Because obviously, you've got the aspect of potentially sending this out to a customer who's potentially at 90% of the yard line, just needs that extra sort of 10%. And that could be more of a sales piece. But obviously, if you are looking to kind of tailor it into, especially if it's more of a customer testimonial and it is a marketing piece, depending on what platform you are using it on, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, even Vimeo, for example. Obviously, if it's on your website, linked through to Vimeo, then obviously there will be live tracking there to see how well it's doing, how many clicks it's getting. So there's various different ways in which you can track your metrics. And obviously, impressions isn't also the be all and end all. You do need to look at obviously the actual metrics and who these people are who are looking at it, and then looking at the data, etc. Just to make sure that obviously your right target audience is has sort of exposure to these videos, and making sure that we always couple it back to, okay, what's the target audience, what's the messaging, what's the tone of voice, etc. And if your video is getting viewed and clicked by a certain target audience or demographic that's completely different to where you're trying to go with the sales point of view, then that needs to be looked at and potentially adjusted. And again, that goes back to Ahmed's point: feedback, focus groups, making sure that you're constantly getting recurring feedback, turns into recurring evidence, and obviously recurring data as well for your sort of video marketing.
Definitely. 100%.
Amazing. So I'm talking now for about 20 minutes. Hopefully we've provided you with a huge amount of insight there just around products and services and how video could really benefit them. Again, Ahmed, I'm sure you can touch on, we've got a ton of products and service videos that we could potentially show you if you fancied reaching out, and
definitely.
Obviously just sort of seeing 100%. Some examples. Obviously my email is chris@sheepbusiness.com. Ahmed's is ahmed@sheepbusiness.com. And obviously within our next episode, we're potentially going to be looking into how video marketing can really boost lead generation. Obviously both being sort of marketing backgrounds, we'll hopefully be giving you a ton of insight on that. But apart from that, I really appreciate all of you listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. This will be live on our YouTube and LinkedIn, and obviously all the different channels, shorter clips, etc. And we'll be hoping to do more of these. I really hope you enjoyed it. Ahmed, thank you for...
It's been a pleasure, and hopefully next time I remember to wear my Shoot Business shirt, so I'm on brand. So yeah, it's been good.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.